kind of doing a little tutorial on how I made this evening dress, and you don't need a pattern or none of that. So first what I did was take the fabric that I was using and I laid it out, and as you can see I started cutting it to the desired length that I wanted for the bodice. And then I got a dress that fits me really well so I can use it to trace the outline. This part is very important because since we're not using a pattern, you do want to use something that fits you fairly nicely. I didn't want it to be too tight, so this dress was a perfect outline for it. So then I went ahead and cut this dress, and it's folded in half just to make my life a little easier. And when you open it up, it should resemble the way that the dress would look when it's opened up. So then I did the same thing on the other side, and know how I said earlier that I'm cutting it even shorter because this is only on the bodice. We're going to do the top part of the dress separately. And then I'm repeating the steps that I did with the first part. This is so I can have matching front and back pieces, and everything will be even this way. So now that both pieces are cut out, they should easily be able to align each other, and here I am checking to make sure that they're pretty even. And then since I did have to flip it upside down, I went ahead and did the hem for one of the sides of the bottom. Okay, so once I sewed the hem for one of them, making sure everything is nice and clean, I went ahead and began to pin both of the pieces together. And if yours does have a hem already, because I did upcycle some pieces of fabric and it did have a hem for one of them, you want to make sure you do it on the bad side so you can flip it over. And for me it didn't matter because I did French hems for this, so it would be flipped over anyways. Also, make sure you iron your garments. So moving on to the top part, you're going to measure the top and bottom for where your bust ends, and then you're going to do the same thing to measure it out back onto the fabric to make sure everything is aligned. You'll see here what I'm talking about when I said this was recycled fabric or upcycled fabric, because you see the eyelets here. But what I did was match my bust measurements to the fabric, folded in half because I did want it to be opaque. And here I am pinning in place to make sure everything is secure before I sew it. So once it's sewed, you can flip it inside out and you'll have a nice and clean top part. I did iron it off camera, but you want to make sure that everything is nice and crisp, and then you're going to iron that shut. What I did was fold it in half because it did turn out a little longer than I wanted it to be, but if you measure correctly, then this shouldn't be an issue for you. So then I ironed that and then pinned it in place. You can see here what I'm doing is kind of folding it in just to make sure I have a clean end rather than just, doing something pretty sloppy. So I took my time to fold it in, and then I made sure to measure the top part with the bodice to make sure everything was aligned. The top part was slightly smaller, which was my goal, because the back part, when you sew it on, you want to do a little fold in the back. You're gonna see soon. So after I folded the top part shut, I was ready to attach it to the bottom. Make sure you flip it inside out. Sometimes we tend to forget, but I did forget here, and then I ended up flipping it inside out, but you want to avoid that mistake. So just flip it inside out, and then you're going to want to pin them together. So once that is pinned and sewed, you should have something that looks like this, and then I just ironed it on. Here's me trying it on, and then this is the part that I did. So you're going to want to fold it up to create a kind of folded effect. You just pinch up, and pretty simple. And then you want to pin it in place before you sew it. And then I also went ahead and sewed the straps on, as you will see soon, but these were basically the last steps. So this is what it looks like so far. I sewed like a kind of a T shape so it would hold itself up, and this is how it would look like when it's on. But I'm also going to later cover this up, so it's not really a big deal for me. If you want, you can use thread that matches the fabric more, but me personally, I'm about to cover it up, so I don't really care how it looks. But this is how it's looking so far. And then the last step, well, not really the last, but for the base, the last step for the base is adding the straps. And I measured 14 inches for each strap because I do want it to hold itself up a little higher. And this is also for both sides, so it will just be one singular strap that goes on from the front to the back. So essentially what I'm doing is using the scrap fabric, as you can see, and it already has a hem. So what I'm gonna do is basically just fold it over like this, so then I have a strap, and then just sew a straight line across. And this measures for both of the straps, so I'm just doing it as one, and then once I sew it, I'm gonna cut it in half. Okay, so this is the sewed strap, and it's together. What I'm gonna do is cut it in half and then attach it to the dress. You also want to make sure that you iron it. I just don't feel like getting the iron. Now that the straps are attached, I'm gonna go along and sew where I pinned.